Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rogue Guy Media. My name is Alex Schlerf, and today we are going to be doing my review for Predator Badlands. Just released nationwide today. I saw this Thursday night, opening night in Dolby Cinema. And yeah, I think I'll just get right into it, I guess. I don't have a huge history with the Predator franchise. Similar to when Alien Romulus came out last year, this past week, I went through and watched all the Predator movies. I had seen both Alien vs Predator movies in prep for that Romulus movie, and then Prey and Killer of Killers because those have come out more recently, and I really like those two movies. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go back and see all of them, and kind of before the release. It's important to note that you don't need to see literally any of those movies really to watch Badlands. I mean, you'll understand a little bit more about like the Predator itself, but this is like the first movie that really dives deep into the Predator mythology, or at least as deep as it does. But anyway, the franchise to me was just whatever to this point because Predator One is like an iconic action movie with Arnold and all that, and it's got a bunch of iconic lines and all of that. But the rest of them, Predator Two, Predators, and The Predator, are like literally bad movies, like legitimately bad movies. And when it came time for Prey in 2022, I think that was the year that it was a basically creative reboot for the franchise. And Dan Trachtenberg came in, did Prey, did Killer of Killers, which is an anthology animated movie, but set in the universe, and now with Badlands. And he has just completely revitalized this franchise and made me more interested in it than I ever would be in the past. And it continues here with Badlands. He once again has cooked. That's why I said in my letterbox review, Dan Trachtenberg has cooked once again. Badlands is a great time. It's such a good movie. I had such a good time with this movie. I think that the thing that Badlands does is it takes a spin on the normal Predator movie. Now, typically with a Predator movie, it is focusing on a group of human characters, and they're fighting off a predator, a predator that is in their environment, their habitat, whatever. And that's typically what we've gotten. Not typically, that is literally what we've gotten with every single Predator movie to this point, besides from like changing the settings and the characters. But with Predator Badlands, our point of view character is the predator. It is looking at him from a protagonist standpoint, and we are seeing him kind of go on his first hunt in this new environment, and we get to see him. And I mean, really, our only characters are him, Elle Fanning's character, which is a synthetic, and obviously I'll get into that, and then like some other creatures that are involved. But besides from that, the predator is our main point of view character here, and it was. I mean, that's just the first thing I'll say is that it was really interesting to see, first off, to see things from a predator's eyes and to really sympathize. I mean, with all these movies, and I've watched, I mean, like I said, I've seen like all the movies in the past week, like four or five of them, and the predator is always the villain. And the fact they were able to make you sympathize and feel things through the predator's eyes in Badlands, I thought was great and so interesting. And it was such an interesting spin on the franchise. Like I said, Trachtenberg kind of did a creative reboot with Prey, with that being kind of a different spin on the franchise. And then with this anthology animated movie this past year, and now we've got Badlands, where again it's taking a spin on it and on the classic. It is still a Predator movie in every sense. We have this similar, it's in the same universe, similar characters. It's a hunt in a jungle, like it's stuff like that. But again, it's taking it from the Predator's point of view, and I thought that was so interesting, and seeing things through his eyes, learning a lot more about the Predator mythology. I mean, the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie, maybe 10 to 15, I wasn't really keeping track, but are seeing the origin of this predator that we're following. His name's Dex. I'm going to refer to him as Dex for as much as I can from now on. So we get to see Dex kind of origin and how tragic it is, and to see what his motivations are on this hunt. They don't just drop you into this planet and say this guy has to hunt this thing, or this predator has to hunt this thing. No, we get to see Dex backstory from the beginning and see why he makes the decisions and why he acts the way he does throughout the movie, which I just thought was played out brilliantly. And he is this kind of, as all, predators you'd expect him to be, he is kind of this like stern, a loner, heavy focus on his quest, nothing else. And that's where Elle Fanning's character comes in and is able to play as a perfect juxtaposition with the predator. And her dynamic with Deck is so great because she's so great in this movie because, like I said, she is a Weyland-Yutani synthetic. So similar to you Alien fans out there, is the same vein as David Johnson in Romulus and all the synthetics we've seen in that franchise. So she brings a lot of comedic relief, and also, like I said, bounces off the Predator so well because he is so like, I'm not working with anybody. I'm gonna go get this hunt, and I'm gonna I can't say what happened at the beginning, but I'm gonna do this thing that he gets the motivation for from the opening scene, and I'm gonna go out here and hunt this thing by myself. And the Predator Deck realizes really quickly that he cannot survive on this planet without help. You know, he cannot survive. It's an insane planet. They make it clear at the beginning that that's one of those planets where like no one really survives going on there. Elle Fanning's character as a synthetic has already struggled to survive, and Deck kind of has to get her out of a situation to even offer her the chance to help him. And he's a bit skeptical at first, and then they kind of go together on this journey. And that's kind of what this movie is this kind of not like buddy cop journey, but this journey throughout this planet to slay this monster that Deck wants to slay to get some honor with his clan. That's the most I can say without getting into spoilers, but I don't even know what's public because I didn't watch too many trailers for this. But that's what this movie is like a journey throughout this journey into the Predator mythology, and then this journey with Deck and Elle Fanning's character to, get to this one point where it ends up their paths do cross very well. It doesn't seem like it at first, but their paths do cross very well eventually in the movie. And yeah, again, it was interesting seeing that from the Predator's eyes. And again, Elle Fanning's character is just she's just great. So it's obvious that she's such a fun character. But again, she adds a lot of humor to the story and the way she plays off Deck and kind of how serious he is, and she kind of slowly endears herself to him, and he starts to kind of slowly want to involve her in things more, and that's really exciting to see that kind of grow throughout the movie. But what comes in that's really interesting between the two of them and just generally in this movie is the action scenes. And the action scenes in this are so creative. And that's why I'm saying that Trachtenberg cooked with this movie, with this direction, because the action scenes, again, aren't only entertaining, but they are so creative because of the environment around them. And what Deck brings and what Elle Fanning's character brings as a synthetic, like what the synthetic brings and what he brings, it's so interesting to see them in this kind of sandbox and with this environment that is literally attacking them, whether it's plants, whether it's trees, whether it's creatures, whether it's animals, whatever it is, something at almost all times is attacking them on this planet. And to see how the two of them kind of work together and play through things, slowly throughout the movie, we see them being able to work together more than they were from kind of minute one when they met each other. But even those early fight scenes, seeing them kind of bounce off the environment and use their specific strengths to their advantage, and be able to. The fact is, even though Elle Fanning's character kind of informs him about this planet because she's been there longer, she couldn't survive without him. The only reason she's around now is because Deck came and saved her. So, they work together a lot, and their teamwork kind of plays out more throughout the movie, and it's really interesting to see. But yeah, the action scenes are great, and especially, I was wanting to see this movie in IMAX, but the timing just didn't work out, and I wanted to get my review out today. But I saw it in Dolby Cinema, which is like, not IMAX, but it's a bigger screen, and there's a good sound system, and it's pretty similar. IMAX is obviously a little bit better, but I would totally recommend, if you're planning on seeing this, to see it in Dolby or IMAX, because it was great to hear all this. I mean, like, best sound candidate, obviously, this movie, and to hear all the sounds of just the creatures, kind of bellowing, and kind of all the sounds of the planet and the forest and all that. And I mean, literally, the second that Deck gets dropped on this planet, he's fighting off these like kind of tree creatures, and it's very the direction is. It would be very easy for the direction of the fight to get lost because of how all over the place it is, but you are hanging on to it and you are really engaged in it throughout. And, from that first fight to the last, and it even just gets more creative throughout. And again, that was really my main positive of this movie, is that it was so entertaining because, it's an action movie. So like the action has to be entertaining for it to be good, but it was so entertaining because seeing those scenes play out and kind of the way they played with the sets and the way they played with the characters, and that duo of Elle Fanning, the synthetic, and Deck as the Predator. And also, I don't think this is spoiling something. There's like a little creature that comes in, and the synthetic dubs him L, or I just completely messed up my head. The Elle Fanning dubs this little creature Bud, so I'm gonna refer to him as that. And Deck, Thea, which is Elle Fanning's character, and Bud completes just one of the most endearing movie trios that I've seen in a long time, and that was completely unexpected. You would not expect to be so endeared in a Predator movie that is rated R, and there's blood, there's action, whatever. You would not expect that, but it is just such a sweet trio and such a good thing. And one of the things I was kind of thinking about is that, It's funny because the way synthetics has been portrayed throughout the Alien and Predator franchise, not the Predator franchise, throughout the Alien franchise, you had like David Johnson in the most recent one, which kind of went back and forth, but at the end of the day was very endearing. And then you have like Michael Fassbender, who was like kind of this master manipulator in Prometheus and Covenant, in with Ridley Scott's more recent movies. And with Elle Fanning, she leans more towards that humorous, comedic side of things and kind of endearing side, and also helpful though. I mean, she's incredibly helpful for Deck in his journey, and she has the knowledge of the island, like I said. And we do get to see her, and again, this is not spoiler; it's in the trailers. We do get to see her twin sister because they're synthetics, but her twin. She plays dual roles in this movie, and pretty much the reason she found herself in the spot she was is because this monster that Deck is hunting separated her from her kind of twin synthetic, and she wants to get back to her. So their needs kind of go hand in hand because she wants to go back to this twin sister who the last time she saw her was at the feet of this beast, and Deck wants to defeat this beast. So kind of there's that crossing the paths there, but she plays dual roles, and it's not like one of those those like Michael B. Jordan in Sinners where it's like incredibly impressive dual performance. Like her Elle Fanning's like main character that we see the most, that's on the back of Deck that you see in the posters, is a lot more endearing. And then the twin sister is kind of bland, just kind of like a villainous character, slowly built throughout the movie, and is like one of the. I mean, if the monster's not the main villain, she's like one of the villains in the movie, and that's a kind of a basic, boring character. That character was whatever, but. And they probably, if they had more runtime, they could have explored more of their relationship and kind of maybe made it more of a thing, but it wasn't really here. That's not really a negative, I'm just saying. But yeah, that dynamic between the two of them was explored very much. But like I said, that trio of those three characters was just incredibly enjoyable to watch on screen, and to see, especially Bud as a character, is just like brought me back to like Baby Kong and Godzilla times Kong, I think last year, as just like an incredibly enjoyable and just ridiculous character, a fun character, and again, something you wouldn't expect to see in this movie that has a lot of emotional weight and has a lot of action and a lot of, it's R-rated, it's very graphic at times, but it was enjoyable to see those three. And like I said, once we get to the climax, they're all working together and in tandem to kind of defeat this monster and defeat the Weyland Yutani Corporation. And it's just, I really don't want to get into spoilers, but there's just so many things that Trachtenberg does in those scenes where it's kind of like a quasi prison breakout scene, and just to see them kind of maneuver around and work together, it's so much fun to see that play out on screen. And yeah, like I said, the direction there is really good and it's really enjoyable. And effects wise, it looked great. I didn't have any problems with the effects. I mean, literally, Elle Fanning's character is on the Predator's back for a lot of the movie, and she's without legs for almost the entire. I think there's probably only a couple scenes where she's with legs, at least the good version of her. But it looks smooth effects lives. I didn't see any problems with it. There was never a point where I was really taken out of the movie. And yeah, that obviously made the action scenes look great and very, very big and spectacle. It wasn't it wasn't like big in terms of like two huge creatures fighting each other, because Deck is much smaller and presumably much weaker than this big creature that he's hunting. But that made it even more impressive because again, they were able to be more creative with the fight scenes. It's not just two CGI monsters slamming against each other. It's not just, toys fighting in a sandbox. It is in a sandbox, and it is two interesting characters fighting, and we're seeing kind of them use their advantages and be caught on their disadvantages, and all of that is just really interesting and played out very well. And like I said, the end kind of, there is kind of a final battle that's more effects heavy, but right before that, there's a kind of a longer sequence, and it's that prison break sequence I was talking about. And we get to see them work in very interesting ways, and especially Deck and this kind of Bud creature, and then eventually Elle Fanning's character as well. So seeing all that was a lot of fun, and just, again, just entertaining. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't get too much. I mean, not that people were probably expecting this, but you don't get too much of an emotional connection to this besides from like that beginning section, which I'll talk about in a second, is like my one negative. But it's just a fun time. I mean, it's an incredibly fun time. I don't think I've said this yet, but I gave this a 4 star out of 5, and it is up on the upper half of my favorite movies. And this is my favorite Predator movie. Like, this is literally already my favorite Predator movie, and that's not the highest bar in the world, because I think to this point the highest Predator movie for me was a 4 star. But I really liked Prey, and I didn't see Prey when it came out. I watched it on streaming, which might kind of weigh my experience one way because I watched Badlands in that great environment, and then with Prey it was at home on streaming, on a TV, but still, it's at home. So that might be part of it, and same with obviously Killer of Killers because that didn't get a wide release; it was a straight to streaming. So my excuse me, my top Predator movies before this were Prey in this order: Prey, Killer of Killers, and the first Predator, and then everything else was just way below. The first Alien vs Predator is kind of fun, but again, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that since the Alien watch, but it's kind of fun. But it's like a 3.5. But yeah, I think it might be a recency bias, and I'll have to, kind of sit on it for a little bit. But this movie has only aged better for me since I watched it last night. I thought maybe like last night when I was reviewing it, like maybe I'm overrating a little bit. Like it was kind of just, it was good, but maybe there's nothing special about it. But the more that I've been thinking about it, with the action, with the humor, with the endearing connection to the characters, like you really do feel connected to the characters. I was worried about that at first, which I'll talk about in like 2 seconds, but eventually they do make you care about the characters and do make the characters do make you as an audience member feel connected to the characters throughout the plot to where at the end when there is kind of an action spectacle you do feel invested in it. So I thought that was done really well. And yeah, I think my one negative, besides the fact that this is just kind of not basic, but it is a relatively standard action movie, so the ceiling is kind of limited. But at least for me, that's kind of the way I rate things. But so I didn't really feel an emotional connection to this. But my only problem is that once we get into the meat of this movie, it's really good and really entertaining, and there's not going to be a point where you're bored. It's very fast paced. It's action after action after action. And if that doesn't sound appealing to you, don't watch this movie. But that's like every action movie. I don't know why you have clicked on this review, but yeah, it's. I don't know if anyone could hear that huge plane just flew by my window. I probably didn't catch it, but it's just action after action after action. Once we get immediate things, but those first 10, 15, 20 minutes that show us a little bit more of the origin of the Predator and a little bit more of the Predator mythology, it wasn't bad per se. Like I was somewhat interested in it, but it was a little bit slow to open the movie that way, and I wasn't really invested when we're seeing these characters that are just getting. There's a lot of history between Deck and the two other characters that we see with him in the beginning, and obviously that kind of development is taking place off screen, and we kind of have to assume things and kind of feel out that relationship with the lines that they give once they're all interacting. But for me, it was hard to get too invested early on, and that opening scene was kind of slow paced. I mean, I think all of that. I think the title card comes. Actually, the title card I think comes later on. Which by the way, love it. I love when the title card comes later in the movie. You get an opening scene, you know right what you're in for. I love movies like that. But I actually think the title card did not come after that opening scene that I'm talking about. I think there was an action scene on the little Badlands after that. But yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that that opening scene for me was a little bit slow, especially compared to the rest of the movie, and I just like it was like 15 minutes in and I was like, I feel like I'm not too enjoying this too much. Like I feel like I'm not too invested in these characters, and I think I might be at some point, but it just docks the rating a little bit, probably from like a 4.5 to a 4. That's kind of what it docks it. But maybe I would rewatch it and it wouldn't bother me as much. I think that's probably possible. I might rewatch this in theaters. I'm not sure. I only say that because there's just so many movies coming out and I'm so busy, and it's just like I might just not have time, and I'm always going to prioritize a movie that I haven't seen over one that I have seen. But if I had the chance to rewatch it, maybe it'll go up for me. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was like my one problem with it. Is it did take not a long time because this is like I think this movie's only like an hour and 50 minutes, but those first 20 minutes to me were kind of like I wasn't totally into it yet. I mean, I eventually got there, but I wasn't there yet. So, yeah, I think I have my little thing I blurb I typed out yesterday, so. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I mean the effects, the action. Like I said, the action just utilized. That is like literally probably my number one positive of this movie. Aside from Elle Fanning's performance, because she's just so good in this movie and so funny, and Bud as well. But I think that's just my favorite part of this movie is how much they utilize the environment around them, and they really made this planet feel like its own character. It was its own character and it was its own storyline, and seeing all the creatures that came out of it, and they're all so different, and they all have different kind of crazy things that affect our characters, and seeing how Deck handles himself in the fights, then seeing how Elle Fanning's character handles herself in the fights, and seeing how the creatures handle himself, like it just all of it's just so creative. And again, it speaks so much to Trachtenberg. He And the action in Prey was just so good too. So like he is just so good with that Predator action and being creative. And I just, again, for me, with that last Predator movie that I watched, The Predator, which came out in 2019, I think, the franchise was dead. Like that was literally a dead franchise. It was a dead IP, and they needed somebody to come in like Trachtenberg to revive it like he did. And it's just so impressive. And it's a credit to him. And if you are, I'm not like a huge Predator. I mean, I've become a bigger Predator fan because of this movie, or because I've watched well because I've watched some of these recent movies, but not as big as like Alien or Marvel or anything like that. But for people that are bigger Predator fans and maybe have read the comics and stuff, I just think you have to be so grateful for what Trachtenberg's done. I think people are. I mean, people have been giving him praises, and this movie's 90% in Rotten Tomatoes. Most people, I haven't really seen a negative review for it yet. So that's all great, and it hopefully means that we can get more projects directed by him in this franchise. Because, like, I'm not saying they can't never stray away from him again until he wants to stop doing it, but I am 100% going to be invested if there's a movie that is Predator and it has his name on it. Whereas if it's another director, I just will be less interested because I haven't seen it yet. Besides from the original one from the 1970s or 80s or whatever, which like how are they going to revive that again? Which I guess maybe they'll bring some characters back with that Killer of Killers ending. But again, I just think it's a huge. This movie is just a celebration of Darren Trachtenberg and what he has done with this franchise, and it's such a fun time. It's even if you've not seen, I think I said this earlier, but even if you haven't seen the Predator movies, like this you can go into this and not having seen anything else in the franchise, and you will still be entertained and enjoy it. So yeah, I think that goes. I didn't say at the beginning. I'm gonna do a small spoiler section because there's like one thing I want to talk about with the ending and what it might be setting up. But yeah, for my non-spoiler people that have not seen this movie, go see it if you love a fun action movie and love seeing and see it at the on the biggest screen with the best sound system you possibly can. I would not listen. You'll still enjoy it if you see it at home. You know, it's a similar thing to Prey where I watch it at home, but I would definitely try your absolute hardest to see it in theaters because I think it will maximize the experience a lot. And that's how it is for a lot of action movies these days, but especially for this one because it was so enjoyable seeing this in Dolby Cinema, and I'm sure it'd be great in IMAX as well. If I do rewatch it, I'd probably go and watch it in IMAX, but that's a story for another day. So yeah, would totally recommend this movie. Let me go where it ranks in like my kind of lists. While I have the non-spoiler people here. Like I said, it is. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my letterbox right now. It is my number one Predator movie. Let me just go through my whole Predator ranking right now. Let's do it. Number one, Badlands. Number two, Prey. Number three, Killer of Killers. Number four, the original Predator. Number five, Alien vs. Predator 1. Number six, Predators. Number seven, Predator 2. Number eight, The Predator. And then number nine is Alien vs. Predator Requiem, whatever the second one was. It was terrible. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. That's my Predator ranking. And like I said, maybe Badlands, there's a bit of recency bias there, but at the lowest, it is third in my Predator ranking. Like at the very lowest. Like I think at the lowest is second. I like Killer of Killers, but I think this is better than Killer of Killers, even not with the recency bias. But then when we go to my 2025 movies, just the new releases, it is at 14 right now. It is right above Companion, right below The Long Walk. And those are all 4-star movies, so those are pretty interchangeable. But it doesn't really get to like the great heights of the really good action movies from this year, like Mission Impossible and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, at least for me, or like F1. But and it's still below some of those more endearing, or some of those more like Oscar worthy movies like Sinners and One Battle After Another and Begonia and all that and Springsteen. But it's right up there for one of the best action movies of the year, I think. Even though it might not reach the heights of like a Mission Impossible, it's right up there, and it is on the top half. It's in my top 15 of movies this year. So I think that's a great success for everyone involved. And with the hype I had going into this because of Trachtenberg, what he did with Prey and Killer of Killers, I was just a big fan. And let me show you. I got this AMC. Shout out AMC. I got this keychain for going to see it on opening night. Yeah, so that's cool. I think this is just the Predator. It's weird that I don't know if the Predator ever wore this design in the movie. Like I don't think Deck ever wore this, but I don't know, still cool. I put it on my desk. Shout out AMC as usual. And yeah, so I'm gonna get into spoilers real quick. Again, click off if you haven't seen it yet, and go see this movie if you haven't, because I think it's great. We're gonna get into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. All right, so quick spoiler section. This might not be any longer than like 2 to 3 minutes, but obviously with the ending of the movie, I mean the ending, like literally the last scene is, for me, it felt like they were teasing a sequel to this, and it's interesting because We've heard that Trachtenberg is talking about doing a sequel to Prey, and Amber Midthunder, the star, has obviously said they've had talks, and she'd obviously be down to return. And then Killer of Killers, like, obviously set up a huge thing because it established that the Predators are taking people throughout time. Now I'm remembering, literally, the girl from Prey was in there. If you haven't seen Killer of Killers, this is spoilers for that. But the ending of Killer of Killers showed that both the main character from Prey, the main character from the first Predator, Arnold, and then the main character from Predator 2, they're all in cages on like the Predator's homeworld. So like clear, and this is Trachtenberg again. So like clearly they're setting up something there. But then with so like how would Prey 2 be a thing if she's like in a cryo chamber on the island? That doesn't make any sense. But then with this movie, Badlands, they're clearly setting up a sequel for this as well. And then there's the Alien and Predator connections with the synthetics in it, and the Weyland Yutani Corporation being a huge part of this movie. Like literally are the antagonists of this movie. So um I think it's interesting I'm interested to see where they actually do go next with this. Whether they'll go kind of full out into that full big crossover, whether it's only Predator, whether it's Alien as well, or they focus on a sequel to one of these movies, like a sequel to Prey, a follow up to some of the characters you met in Killer of Killers, a follow up to the characters from Predator 1 and 2. Or the follow up to Badlands. And I don't know what I would prefer because I loved Prey. I love this movie. I don't really care to see the characters from the original Predator and Predator 2 come back. It just doesn't like good characters. I don't care. I don't need to see them again. Like, let's move on from that. But I wouldn't like complain, but I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about that. I'd have to think about that more. But for me, I feel like, I mean, obviously the ending is Mother's coming in and that's Mother and it cuts to black. Like that is the most like sequel setup ever. Like that is clearly setting up for another storyline, at least with these characters, whether it's not a sequel or whether it's a sequel or not. So yeah, I'm curious to see where Trachtenberg goes. Like I said, I mean, give him all he wants in this franchise. Like give him the reins. He's already gotten the reins, but like give him the reins and let him do whatever he wants. That's the clear message that's the clear thing that I felt after seeing this and Prey and Killer of Killers. But yeah, I think that's really all I'm going to say is I'm really interested to see where they go because this was teasing a sequel and there was no post credit scene or anything. But I guess this like that scene was technically a post credit scene because they cut to the logo and then like right after this scene, literally immediately after that. So it was like a quasi credit scene. But yeah, my preference is to any more of the characters in this movie, Deck and Thea would be great, and Bud as well, I hope, because he's like grown now, I guess. And then anyone from Prey, I'd love to see again, especially Amber Midthunder's character. The people from Killer of Killers were super interesting, and if I'm remembering correctly, I don't know if they were in those little cryo chambers at the end of Killer of Killers, but I'm pretty sure they survived. And they fought predators across time, so that's obviously a huge part of this kind of ending they had with Killer of Killers. So. Yeah, I'm down for. Well, at the end of the day, I'm down for anything Trachtenberg wants to do. Like I can't like praise him throughout this whole episode and then not trust him to make like a worthy follow up to what he's kind of trying to set up. But I'm just curious to see where it goes because, like I said, there's alien connections, there's connection to previous movies. It's probably too early for another Alien vs Predator. It's definitely going towards that way, but with them already announcing they're working on a Romulus sequel and it's not going to be coming out, it's like 2027, and this movie just came out, so another Predator movie would be, 1 to 2 years at the earliest, so 2027, 2028, maybe even 2029. I think this movie will make money, so they should at least have some follow up. But because I think the budget was relatively low and it's been getting good reviews, so it should be doing good at the box office. But go see it if you. I don't know why you're listening to this part if you haven't, but go see it if you haven't. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see where they go because, like I said, Aliens really both franchises are in a really good spot right now. Both Alien and Predator. Alien Earth, I never did a review for it, but I was a bit iffy on it points. It was solid, but I wasn't impressed as much as everyone else was. But obviously Romulus was great. And it made great money at the box office. It was one of my favorite movies of 2024. That was last year, right? Yeah, 2024. And I loved all the characters in that. Would love to see, especially Katie Spaney and David Johnson again. And then with Badlands, it's the same thing. I mean, I was so impressed by it. I would love to see those characters again. And then Prey was so good as well. Killer of Killers earlier this year. So both franchises are in a great spot. So whenever they do want to do that crossover, I think whether it's Fede Alvarez, whether it's Trachtenberg, whether it's both of them. I know Ridley Scott's been trying to get back into the Alien franchise, so I prefer not to speak on that. I'm not too enthralled by that idea, especially if it's at the price of a Romulus sequel. Because we've heard Fede isn't going to be directing a Romulus sequel, which is just a discussion for another day. But just to wrap up here, I'm excited to see wherever they go, and I think that Alien vs Predator crossover is inevitable, especially with the previous movies not being received very well. I think the first one's good, but most people don't. It's kind of just dumb action. But anyway, I'm excited to see where they go with Predator and Alien, but obviously for this episode with Predator, and I would love to see, you know, all of these characters again, but even seeing them all together would be awesome. Like imagine seeing like Elle Fanning's character and David Johnson's character together. Like that would just be I know they would get along great. That would just I might tweet about that. That would be awesome. That's just exciting in my head to see all the potential. And again, it's just exciting to be able to talk about this franchise in a positive way again because of how low it was not too long ago, like literally less than a decade ago. So yeah, Dan Trachtenberg, you've saved my life. Yeah, that's it for spoilers. I have nothing else to say. Go watch the movie. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting all the content from this past week. I'm trying to get on a consistent plan of like making a piece of content every day of the week. And what I mean by that is not like an article or a video every day, but kind of the current plan is to do so obviously as I usually do is an episode on Friday, and there could be a second episode during the week, but that's only if there's breaking news. But episode on Friday, and then clips on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on both Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can check it out any of those places in the description. And then Thursday article, Friday review, and repeat that. And I tweet out excerpts from the articles, almost every day. So yeah, that's the plan going forward, and it might be even more content coming up because of the Thanksgiving break coming up for me and winter break coming up for me and in my senior year of school. So yeah, all exciting stuff. We're kind of getting into the winding down the movie year, but there's a lot of great releases that I still want to talk about, and even more that came out this weekend. So it's going to be a lot of content coming your way, a lot of content from me, and I promise whenever I can make content, I will do it. And yeah. So next week I have an early screening that I'm very excited to talk about. I am going to officially announce it like right after I post this episode and get all the things sorted with that. So excited for that next week. It is on Wednesday, so review will be out on Thursday. Yeah. Wait, I think it's on Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday review for that, and all the content with that will be there. I'll have an early reaction Wednesday night. And yeah, thanks for all the support again, and go see Predator Badlands, and I will see you later.